Let's talk about the Daily Mail's latest cell phone, because if the goal was to prove Prince Harry and Meghan Sussex wrong, Caroline Graham managed to do the exact opposite. She didn't rebut the accusations. She embalmed them, framed them, and slapped them on the front page. The headline alone tells you everything you need to know. My tears with Meghan's dad as I told him to choose her over our friendship. Pause and sit with that for a moment, because at no point ever should a journalist be in a position where a vulnerable, estranged father is being asked to choose between his daughter and a member of the British tabloid press. That headline isn't moving. It's disturbing. And the fact that the Daily Mail thought this was a good look tells you just how warped their ethical compass truly is. This article was published as a direct response to Harry and Meghan accusing Caroline Graham, the Daily Mail's US editor, of crossing ethical boundaries by remaining at Thomas Markle's hospital bedside while simultaneously reporting on him. And instead of denying it, she confirmed every part of it, proudly. She doesn't dispute the closeness. She doesn't deny the access. She doesn't deny being present during one of the most vulnerable moments of Thomas Markle's life. In fact, she leans into it emotionally, theatrically and visually, complete with photographs. According to Graham, her relationship with Thomas Markle began in 2018 after she interviewed him following the staged paparazzi photos, his heart attacks and his decision not to attend Meghan's wedding. Already we're starting from a place of exploitation, because that was the era when Thomas Markle realized the press was willing to pay him for access to his daughter's pain. Graham insists that this professional relationship evolved into a genuine friendship. They bonded over old Hollywood films, country music, his former career as a lighting director, and even cats. She claims everything was off the record unless he explicitly said otherwise. Here's the problem. Journalists do not get to unilaterally decide when a relationship stops being professional if they continue to publish stories about the same person. You cannot be off-the-record friends while also acting as the gatekeeper of someone's narrative in a global tabloid. That is not friendship. That is dependency. Fast forward to 2025. Thomas Markle, now in his 80s, is living in the Philippines with his son, Thomas Markle Jr. He texts Caroline Graham to tell her he's facing a below-the-knee leg amputation following a fall and a severe blood clot. And what does she do? She flies across the world to his hospital bedside at his urging. Let that sink in. A Daily Mail editor travelled internationally to visit a vulnerable, estranged father in hospital, then wrote about it, published photographs of it, and sold it as a first-person exclusive, somehow believing this would disprove accusations of unethical behaviour. Graham claims Thomas wanted her there so she could help control the narrative, counter rumours, and make one final public plea to Meghan for reconciliation before he dies. And right there is the entire problem. Because if reconciliation were truly the goal, the press should never have been involved. Full stop. Harry and Meghan's team accuse Graham of breaching ethical boundaries and interfering with private outreach. Graham responds by calling that accusation hypocritical and insists she actually helped by providing Meghan's team with Thomas's phone number, hospital details, and even his room number. That is not the defence she thinks it is. A journalist inserting herself as the logistical middleman between an estranged daughter and her hospitalised father is not noble. It is inappropriate, it is controlling, and it places the journalist at the emotional centre of a family crisis that does not belong to her. Then comes the most jaw-dropping part of the article. Graham writes that she tearfully told Thomas Markle she would walk away from their friendship if it meant he could reconcile with Meghan, because it would be impossible for him to do so while remaining close to someone in the British press, especially from a publication Prince Harry has openly condemned. Read that again. She openly acknowledges that her presence is an obstacle to reconciliation. And yet, she stays. She doesn't walk away quietly. She doesn't remove herself. She doesn't stop writing. She doesn't stop publishing photos. Instead, she writes an entire article about how painful it would be for her to do the right thing. That isn't sacrifice, that's emotional theatre. If you truly believe your absence is necessary for healing, you don't announce it on the front page of the Daily Mail, you simply leave. But leaving would mean losing access. Leaving would mean losing the exclusive. Leaving would mean losing the story. And that is why this article exists. The accompanying photos only make matters worse. The body language is intimate, familiar, emotionally close. These are not accidental snapshots. They are curated images designed to reinforce her importance in Thomas Markle's life. That's exactly why so many people online were disturbed. The internet did not buy the sob story, not for a second. One commenter summed it up perfectly by saying that if Thomas Markle were a good father, he would never be in a position that required him to choose between a relationship with his daughter and a Daily Mail journalist. That cuts to the heart of the issue. A loving parent does not maintain a years-long relationship with a publication that has relentlessly attacked his child, published her private correspondence, questioned her mental health, and profited off her pain, then claimed to be desperate for reconciliation. Another commenter called the relationship what it really is: a business transaction. Caroline Graham gets front-page exclusives. Thomas Markle gets money, relevance, and a platform to continue gaslighting his daughter through the press. That is not friendship. That is mutual exploitation. People were also right to point out that Thomas Markle has had years, 8 of them, to choose Meghan. He didn't. Every time he chose the press. He chose interviews. He chose leaks. He chose sympathy tours. He chose money. This was never about reconciliation. It was about punishment, punishing Meghan for setting boundaries, for going no contact, for refusing to perform forgiveness publicly for the benefit of the tabloids. Then there's the sealed letter Meghan sent through official channels, involving waivers, embassy coordination, and video documentation. Thomas Markle asked Graham not to reveal its contents, and she claims she respected that. But the Sussexes were later criticised for acknowledging the delivery of the letter after Graham had already published an article inserting herself into the entire situation. You don't get to embed yourself in a private family crisis and then clutch your pearls when the people involved respond publicly. Many readers also noted how manipulative the headline felt, how strangely romanticised it was. My tears, our friendship, choose her over me. The language is emotionally loaded, almost possessive. This wasn't framed as a father-daughter tragedy. It was framed like a love triangle with a Daily Mail editor at the centre. Let's be clear, Thomas Markle is not a helpless victim. He is a grown man. No one forced him to speak to the press. No one forced him to pose for photos. No one forced him to accept money. For nearly a decade, he has consistently chosen tabloids over accountability, publicity over privacy, and profit over his daughter. So when people ask why Meghan hasn't visited, called, or reconciled, the answer is simple. Every attempt at contact has historically ended up in the newspapers. This article didn't defend Caroline Graham. It indicted her. It confirmed the intimacy, the access, and the emotional entanglement. It proved that Harry and Meghan were absolutely justified in calling it out. If this was meant to embarrass Meghan, it failed spectacularly. Instead, it exposed how deeply embedded the Daily Mail is in this family estrangement, and why reconciliation was never possible as long as tabloids were involved. This wasn't journalism. It was emotional blackmail dressed up as concern, and the public saw right through it. In trying to paint herself as compassionate, Caroline Graham revealed the very ethical breach she claimed didn't exist. Once again, Harry and Meghan's warnings about the British press weren't vindictive. They were prophetic. Thank you so much for watching. If you found this breakdown insightful, please like the video, leave your thoughts in the comments, and share it with others. To all our subscribers, thank you for your continued support. I'll see you in the next one.